So how do you view the 28th district demographic-wise, and what do you see as being the issues that are most important to the residents here?
Well, I think if you actually look at the demographics, the aging population is really kind of it kind of goes on both spectrums. You have the aging population that is really high needs when it comes to medical coverage, housing, accessibility to, in-home care. So that's one side. And then on the other side, you have a declining population of youth and children. And that you want to make sure that there's investments in education so that our kids are, come out of the education system not only educated, but with a hunger to go out and figure out, do I need tech school? Do I need the military? Do I need college to make those investments and then come back to the community? Because you need both for your community to really thrive. So looking at demographics, and policy and where they intersect, it's really important that you have a balance to take care of our vulnerable and while figuring out how to have business models to keep communities going. And without young people to feed into our workforce, that's a problem. And then how do we take care of our aging population in a humane and dignified way is also going to be an issue. And Polk County demographics, they actually have quite a high senior citizen population. So that is something that really, when we look at policy, the unpaid family caregiver is a really important part of keeping our vulnerable adults home without going into nursing homes or assisted living. So we got to figure out how do we do this multi-generational approach with policy that benefits our young families and our aging population.
Okay. And then what unique qualities would you bring to the 28th District as its representative in Madison, and what kind of experience will you bring to the position that will be valuable in Madison for the people of the district here?
So my professional life, I've worked in emergency services since 1990. That tells you how old I am. From working as EMT, first responder, to, for the last 20 years, I've been a medical legal death investigator with the medical examiner's office. So I have a unique privilege to see families when things are going on, and how policy impacts, whether it's your local ambulance, fire department, social services, and even death investigation, and how policy directly impacts services that are needed in emergency situations. So that there is a hands-on skill and perspective that I have, over 30 years of experience doing. I also was a town board member and also a school board member. So I when we talk about levy limits and all this that are done down in Madison, I have experience that says, okay, you make the policy, and we as local board members have to now implement these policies, whether they're positive or negative, or how it impacts everyday folks. So that's also kind of a unique perspective. And then actually working for a school district and working for local government, I understand, when cuts are made, there is an expectation that we do the same work, whether or not there are cuts to the services that we offer. So when there's we are required to have a balanced budget, and if we have more people that we serve, then there is this expectation that there's a lot of waste, but really with our needs that we have, whether it's mental health, education, special ed, the veterans, all these different departments, our budgets are very lean because of policy, but our demands and needs from the constituents are constantly increasing. And that is really noticeable with our aging population. When you look at the foster care population, when you look at all these places that have all these needs, that is the job of government to really help make sure that these services are there for the people in need. And when we say, well, we're cutting taxes and we're doing these things, who does it ultimately impact? And it is the people that we serve when they're in their most need. So I think we have to be a little more open when we're talking about how these things are going to impact everyday folks.
Yeah, and of course redistricting is an issue. It looks like, looking at the map here, 28th district, all of Polk, I guess, except for Clear Lake, and then maybe we're one or two towns down south of us in St. Croix County. How familiar are you with the area? I guess Polk County, minus Clear Lake, and then those couple towns down in St. Croix.
So actually, I am pretty familiar with a lot of the area up in Polk County. I think that the biggest difference between Polk County and then where I live in St. Croix County is the population density. And when you look at population density, Polk County is like about 45,000 folks, and I believe it's like, 900 square miles is how it's kind of put out there. And per square mile, the population density is like less than half of what St. Croix County is. So then when you look at that, what does that mean when it comes to services? So we know, like in social services, home health care, all these different things that, again, really our senior citizens need. It's a lot. It's difficult in a county like St. Croix County when we have more people per square mile than it is up in Polk County, but that does negatively impact how services are rendered to the folks who live there. So doing a home health care in a place where you have 14 people per square mile versus a place that you have 7 people per square mile impacts the amount of people that you serve. So, when we talk about policy and the familiarity of the area, if you have one public health nurse that has to do home visits and on one side of the county down in Garfield, and then has to go all the way up to Frederick, that is the difference between, serving 2 people in a day and serving 5 people in a day.
Yeah.
And from a policy perspective, that's a huge problem. So when we look at Polk County and we look at the poverty rate, there's 6% of the folks in District 28 in poverty. Mm-hmm. We actually that in services rendered, and especially when directed by state-run policy, it's a huge detriment to folks in rural Polk County. Mm-hmm. So we have to figure out policies that are going to make it more accessible to more people, and figure out processes that will help with that.
Mm-hmm. What does the district here need in terms of programs, proposals, or changes that you would fight for as our state representative?
Well, we have a projected $5.2 billion surplus. And, when we look at policy, one thing we can do is give a tax cut and give everybody, a one-time thing of $100 and say, see, I gave you a tax cut statewide. Everybody got $100. Woohoo, that's awesome. My thing is, with a $5.2 billion surplus, we should be looking at programs that help make folks' lives better. And when we're talking about working families, one of the things that I think would be a big help would really, especially after the pandemic when during the pandemic, we had 2 years where families didn't have to pay for school lunches. It was covered by the Feeding Children and through policy nationally. Now this year, working families have to pay for their school lunches. And plus we have inflation, we have all this other stuff going on. If we took $1 billion and invested it in our school lunches for all children in public school, we would be able to feed all the kids in public schools for the next 10 years. And what does that investment garner? We would then be supporting our local farmers by buying local. We would be supporting our communities more. We would be helping working families so that they wouldn't have to worry about that. And then you would still have $4.2 billion left to implement other programs.
And let me ask, is that when you're giving that stats, is that nationwide or just Wisconsin or?
Just Wisconsin.
Okay.
It would be a way to use our $5.2 billion surplus. We have a $5.2 billion surplus in the state of Wisconsin, plus we have I believe it's 1.5 or 1.8 billion in our slush fund. So we can afford to help working families. Mm-hmm. And if we did that one thing, it would have a positive impact on all those involved. We know that we have a hunger problem in Wisconsin and the nation. We know that children are struggling. We also, if you look at the United Way Alice report, we know that in Polk County, the number of families who are struggling just to make ends meet with the income restraints. So these are working families that are working paycheck to paycheck just to make ends meet. If we did this one thing, the actual positives on it far outweighs anything else. And the Alice report tells us that. So if we would just do, if I could do one thing as a legislator, it would be to fund school lunches for the next 10 years.
Okay. And then name one of your opponent's stances on an issue that probably concerns you the most.
Well, of course, the Dobbs issue is a huge issue. I as a woman who, never really even thought about having a right taken away, look at this as, pretty frightening. I'm a woman who, my husband and I have 6 kids. I have experienced loss and have experienced what, having to make decisions and choices on a very hard time in my life. I mean, we had an ectopic pregnancy, and my husband had to make a decision, to save me, and he did that, and that meant that they, had to take the fetus, and by him making that decision, not only did he save my life, but he actually gave me the ability to mother my children that I had at home, and it was a very, very difficult decision to make. And, to know that women, are going to be put in a position that you have to be near death before you can get emergency medical treatment is just not right. And I will always stand with women on this. And if folks don't want to have that kind of reproductive freedom, then don't. But it is not up to the government to tell all women that it's a one-size-fits-all and this is what you're going to do. So my opponent is part of the party that literally took away a woman's right to her reproductive freedom and to what goes on in her body. And that is the stark difference between the two of us.
I appreciate you sharing that personal story. Is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you'd like to share with the readers of the Inter-County Leader and then anybody listening on our digital platform this morning?
I'm a proven problem solver and a proven hard worker. I helped create a nonprofit for suicide prevention here in St. Croix County, and have worked with a lot of the different communities when talking about mental health and suicide prevention. And I just want to work for the folks of District 28 so that the folks in District 28 can have and enjoy the same opportunities in life that I was able to enjoy. And it would not be without those opportunities that I would be here today. And I don't have a college education. I, went to technical school. I come from humble means. My family had a family farm. We lost that in the 80s, and we've always been scrappers and go to work for people, and also appreciate the fact that with the opportunities that we've had in our life, to be able to share those opportunities and then help other people get that hand up to have the same things.